this time I played Super Mario World. And, I was coming into it not really thinking that I was going to enjoy it. If you don't know, I have a hard time with classic games for a lot of reasons, just my personal, interest in games and kind of exploring games and learning about games and things like that. Kind of puts a limitation on me where if I play a game that I know a lot about through other people or like other people's impressions and things like that, it can be hard for me to really appreciate it outside of just being like, historically, this is significant, right? Super Mario Bros. 3 is a great example of this. I sat down, played Super Mario Bros. 3, and while it definitely has a lot of variety to it, it just kind of more or less just feels like what I would expect a Mario game would feel like. So it's like, okay, this feels like Mario. And I think that's what kind of took me by surprise in Super Metroid when I played that, was it just did not like feel the way I thought it would. And honestly, I feel like Super Metroid quality-wise was not up to the level and standard I had generally heard. I feel like Super Metroid is more of a stumbling first step that leads to a good idea that doesn't necessarily work well, at least from an initial impression. I think one of the benefits of Super Metroid is that you can each playthrough, you kind of build on your understanding and mastery of that moveset, and that game seems to, as somebody who only played through it once, seems to have room for you to move up like that movement skill level and really change how you approach that game. Just like the screw attack off the top of my head, like how you can spin, pretty much I think infinitely as long as you have the timing down right. And I feel like in playing Super Mario World, I got a very similar feeling to that with like Super Metroid, where Super Mario World has a lot of like things that aren't very clear on like the surface level, but when you sit down and play them, you can kind of just see this like really expansive move set that Mario has, with the ability to like just throw stuff like upward, like side to side. Like the spin jump, regular jump. And even the power-ups, like the cape, just has like this really interesting like dive mechanic that I really just would not expect to see in a Mario game, like a level of skill that they ask you to do. And so it's when you sit down and start playing it, you realize that like, well, yeah, you are Mario and you're just jumping, but like the moves you have and how they ask you to use those moves in the world, just has a really unique feeling to it. And it definitely, to me, feels like no other Mario game I've played, in terms of just like the level of complexity and I guess like deep thought put into the game design in a way that I think just really, really impressed me with it. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at like surface level, Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, I think in a lot of ways I would expect I would like Super Mario World more because I'm somebody who really likes variety. And Super Mario Bros. 3 has variety in that case. But I think the problem with Super Mario Bros. 3, at least to me, is that variety very rarely has a real impact on the game. Where in the case of Super Mario World, where there is not that much variety in terms of the surface level elements, the tweaks they make throughout the game's level design, the enemy design, and then Mario's like own moveset and how those moves like change how you interact with the environment, really kind of blew me away, I think, in a way that I was not really expecting. I don't think it's like a new thought or feeling about that. I'm pretty sure if I went and looked up online Super Mario World, thoughts and feelings, that would be something that would be kind of relevant, unlike where like Super Mario Land. I think the thing with Super Mario Land is that like people always kind of lean on there's the shooting elements, the level, like the stage settings are weird, but like what really surprised me about Super Mario Land was the difficulty curve, and me just kind of loving the difficulty curve in Super Mario Land, because in some ways it's actually kind of bad. But it's when you think about the context of when it came out, it makes a ton of sense why like basically goes from easy level 1 up to like somewhat hard level 2, and then just like really flattens off until the end of the game, because I think they just need you to have that challenging Mario experience immediately in a Game Boy game kind of thing. So anyways, this is not about Super Mario Land, it's about Super Mario World. And so I really enjoyed the mechanics of Mario as a character, as well as the enemy design. Again, there's not a ton of different enemies in the game, but I feel like their attack patterns and how they react to Mario hitting them, it's all very different. I think about like I forget what they're called, the football players or whatever, and like how you jump on them and you kind of bounce off in really weird ways, but they have like different functionalities where some have like balls that they throw that bounce around a bunch. They have ones that like shovel rock. There's other ones that will just like dash at you and things like that. And it's like, well, yeah, it's still kind of the same enemy, and like a lot of the the reactions or how you approach that enemy is the same, but because of those different elements they throw in those enemies, and also just sometimes straight up the placement of them, right? Where it's like, here's a Chuckya on a tiny little platform, and how you deal with that is incredibly different from how you deal with a Chuckya on like a flat plane kind of thing, right? And because it's like a very dynamic bounce you get off of that, it's kind of interesting to try to plan around that. And then they also, I think once you hit them once, like even if they have like an equipment thing they're using, like a shovel, they'll just like start charging you, so you can get them to kind of like charge off the edge. So there's like a lot of really cool dynamics, I think, to the enemy design and how they move and how they work. And then also the world map's just kind of a neat thing. I was kind of surprised, and I guess one thing I should have said towards the start is like, I played this game when I was like maybe 4 or 5. We might actually get to that here later. I played this game when I was really young, but like really have not played it any significant amount since then. So like this is pretty much a fresh experience to me beyond just like random flashes of memories I have from when I was a kid. But the world map's actually pretty neat because it's not like, World 1-1, World 1-2, World 1-3. You have kind of these different paths you can go down. And it's not super complicated, but like depending on like how you finish a level, it like opens up different paths to get around. But most of the time it seems pretty straightforward. But there are occasional times in the game where they really force you to go and like really explore a level and try to find every little secret passage in it. And I think it's like a cool way to get you to kind of replay levels and try to think about them differently and like really sit down. And again, I kind of think this comes back to the moveset. Like think about how the character moves in this world, what your capabilities are, how can you reach different spaces in the world itself for that. So yeah, I just think everything just feels like it's really, really tightly designed. And even though it's working with not that like nearly as many assets as I'd say like a Super Mario Bros. 3 feels like it's working with, just the diversity in terms of the actual mechanics of the game and how it functions with Mario, I think is really interesting and really cool. So I was really happy. I came away from that game being very positive. I always worry like coming into these things and just like, I don't feel good saying like I don't like Super Mario Bros. 3. I don't care about Super Mario Bros. 3. It's just not a game for me. I don't feel good about saying that. And I always just feel like kind of a Debbie Downer in those cases, but I want to be honest, right? Like I can't sit there and just say like, oh yeah, I like Super Mario Bros. 3 just because I want to like Super Mario Bros. 3. I try to, at the very least, kind of soften my language a little bit. It's kind of the problem I had with talking about Xenosaga Episode 3 recently, where I feel like I didn't soften my language enough, because sometimes you don't need to be aggressive, I feel like, with your language, and you can get the point across, honestly, in a better way, I think. But anyways, and I feel like I'm just kind of, like, whenever I walk away from a game like Super Mario Bros. 3, I'm just like, I feel like it's just harsh, and, like, I don't want to, like, make people upset, but, like, that's just how I feel. And I feel like Super Metroid was kind of writing that line. I'm like, this game's interesting, like, from a lot of perspectives, and I can see why people like it and why so many games built upon what Super Metroid was. But when I think about it from a quality perspective, like, at least from a first-time playthrough, it really underwhelmed me in a lot of ways, and it makes me think Super Metroid's, like, not really the Super Nintendo classic I really expected it to be. It feels like a foundation that really just didn't come together, versus, like, A Link to the Past feels like a foundation that was set and pretty much, I would say, almost perfected in A Link to the Past, in a way that I think kind of in some ways hurts it now, because so many games since have been built upon that formula and do it differently, but use that core foundation, like, as its kernel. So when you go back to A Link to the Past, it's kind of like, well, this is kind of the kernel of every Zelda game in some ways, so it makes it less special, I think. So, and I wonder if part of that with Super Mario World is that the moveset that Mario has in this game, I think, may have ended up in a very similar situation as like a Super Mario 64. I say as somebody who's mainly played 3D Mario games over the years, and that's kind of my focus in a lot of ways when it comes to Mario games specifically. And that, like, Mario's moveset was really rolled back after Super Mario 64, and Sunshine as well, probably, actually. Sunshine's kind of weird because it forsakes some moves for other moves, but it's still really complicated in its moveset. But, when you get to Super Mario Galaxy, Mario's moveset's significantly less of a thing there. And I think so going forward, that has been the case. Odyssey has some really cool stuff as well with Cappy and stuff, so I don't want to, like, give it too much trouble. But I just feel like Super Mario World feels like the game that has the most that you can do with the moveset. And I wonder if a lot of them rolling that back is just feeling like maybe it's too complex for, like, a more general audience in some ways. But it does feel like Super Metroid in some ways, where it's like there feel like there's a high skill ceiling with this moveset, and once you know what you're doing, and once you know the mechanics of the game, there's like parts of the game you could really excel in, just because of increased knowledge of how that moveset works. Where I sometimes think about games like, I actually put in New Super Mario Brothers for a little bit, just to kind of like feel the difference between the games, the DS one. And like, yes, Mario has like an expansive moveset in that game, because he can do wall jumps, ground pounds, things like that. But the motions and actions you have feel very controlled and very limited in what you can do with them. And I think anything that you can do with that expanded skill set often feels more like a breaking of the game rather than the game kind of embracing it, where I feel like Super Mario World embraces those elements in a way that I really liked. So anyways, I was really happy that I sat down and played through Super Mario World and really enjoyed it. It's a shame that I can't say that as much about a lot of other Super Nintendo games that I've played. Even like Yoshi's Island, I feel kind of mixed on. Although I went back and read my impressions about Yoshi's Island, and my memory was being a lot more negative about that game than I was. When I went and read my impressions, I remember disliking the beginning of the game, but thinking it really picked up in the back half. So maybe that's something I should do sometime soon, is go back and revisit that again. On the Patreon, we do like article readings and things like that, where I go back and read old articles and gives like some feedback to like how it was written, or maybe explain why I may have felt certain ways, even if I maybe don't agree with it today, and things like that. And I wonder if that's like a good one to go back and do, honestly, especially after talking about this week. So I'll think about it. I will think about it.